This podcast was brought to you by Healthy Worthy Chiropractic Services, located in Castro Valley, California. Contact them at 510-278-4288.
Say hi.
Hi.
My name
is
Marcelino.
Marcelino.
Thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening.
Remember when you was a baby, you did that for me?
Yeah.
All right, come on.
How did you guys choose to hyphenate your name? Whose last name is Strong and whose last name is Henderson?
My last name is Strong.
So that's Jason Strong, and I'm Anthony Henderson. And we just did what sound the best,
And so
which was Henderson Strong. Sounds better than Strong Henderson.
Right.
Yeah.
And then when they do it in alphabetical order for kids, he's not all the way at the end.
So
That's what it's Marcelino Henderson Strong.
Got it. This is very personal work for me.
Politics.
I believe I was called to tell my story, use my voice, be a voice for the community, to speak to and for a community of people that's been ignored, denied, overlooked.
Religion.
This is my life's work.
Religion.
I want to use words to uplift, heal, inspire, encourage.
Do something different. Every Monday at 10.
Good day, thinkers, thought leaders, progressives, and dreamers. I'm Craig, the writer Stewart, and this is So Much to Say. These are my thoughts in my voice on black shit, white shit, gay shit, and everything in between. Today we're talking to a couple that adopted. How long have you guys been together, actually?
12 years.
12 years total. So how did you meet? Do you remember?
Well, there's several scenarios, but I think the first way I saw him was he came to my church.
Was this here in Atlanta? Because you're
In
like...
Philadelphia. We're
You're
both
from Philly. Right, okay, right.
And I was on the door ushering. And he came and he was invited by our first lady at the time because they all knew someone who died and they went to the funeral.
Okay.
And after the funeral, they came to our church.
Uh-huh.
And he was sitting there, and I was like, who in the world is this? And I found every reason to walk back and forth past him.
So you kept looking for reasons to bypass him at the church?
Yes. And he would not, when I tell you he would not budge, he wouldn't blink, he wouldn't turn his head.
Did you see him looking?
I did notice him, but not looking. I was looking at him, at parts of him.
So you were looking at him too?
Yeah, I definitely noticed him because he walked past me several times. But one thing that I noticed was I wasn't accustomed to people wearing slippers in church, and because he was an usher.
You had on slippers?
Yeah.
Not slippers.
What were they? Describe them to me. The gays are so
No.
eccentric.
They were Timberland.
Because we are from up top,
Right.
and we love a good Timberland.
They were Timberland leather clogs for men. So it was a lot. It really was a lot.
It was a slipper.
So I noticed the slipper, and then I noticed his body, and we went on from there. But we had
For those of you that can't see us, when he said body, he was like gesturing towards like his...
Posterior.
Correct.
Yeah. And so, but prior to that, we had talked several times on the phone.
On the chat line.
On the chat line.
The chat line.
I do remember the chat
Back in the
line.
day.
Yeah.
And we didn't know, so we were leaving each other messages throughout all this time, but we had never met.
Let me explain to the people what the chat line is. I have talked about the chat line on here before.
Wow.
This was before the mobile apps. This was before the internet and all of that kind of stuff. It was the chat line. So you would dial this number. It was a local number. And you would leave a voice message describing yourself. Hey, what's up? I'm Craig. I'm 6 feet tall. I'm 195 pounds. You know, I'm brown skinned. I got a full beard, salt and pepper beard. You know, you just describe yourself.
Yeah.
And you leave this description of yourself, and people just hear the tone, the texture of your voice, and then they hear your description, and then your imagination goes from there. And you either leave the person a message or you don't.
Yep.
And so then you can send the person a message, and then they can send you a message back. But I can't remember how it works, because you send messages to each other back and forth, but then how do you
I
actually
believe there was a button
connect?
that you could connect to.
Okay, you're right.
To each other.
Right, so then it would
But
say
of course,
like
people
press
just
3.
leave their number and talk offline and hook up, meet up, etc.
Okay, so you had talked before on the chat line. So when did you realize this was the same person that you had talked to on the chat line?
Well, actually, I had went out of town for traveling for work, and I came back. We were talking on the phone. And he asked me to stop by, So when I stopped by,
This is after you saw each other in the church.
Yes,
Yes.
but he still didn't know
we
that.
still
hadn't
hadn't
made the connection. Got it.
So
Okay.
he made the connection because I stayed in the car for about a half an hour just talking to him while he was, leaning over into the car.
Okay.
And he kept saying,
I know exactly who. Like when he pulled up in front of my
He knew
door,
exactly
I
who
know
I was.
exactly who he was. I
But I
said,
didn't
"Oh
remember him.
my!"
You
God.
knew that this was the person from the chat line.
We met from. I invited him over from the chat.
Oh,
line.
wait. Let me go back. So you met in church. You saw each other in church. You did not communicate.
Right, we never
Then you
communicated.
went on the chat line at some point after that.
Right.
You're chatting on the chat line.
Right.
Don't see each other. And then you invite him over.
Right.
When he pulls up, you knew it was him.
I knew exactly who
Got
he
it.
was.
but I didn't know who he was at all.
He kept
So
saying
you didn't really look too much at him at church that day.
Well, I wasn't looking probably at the face.
You weren't looking at the face.
He kept saying, "You look familiar, but I
Familiar,
don't
yeah.
know where." And I remember distinctly, I said, "Well, when you remember where, don't say
Don't say
it."
it, yeah.
Because I was really
Just
big
keep
into
it.
church,
Right.
and this is when I didn't believe that church and sexuality should mix.
Right.
And I was like, "If you remember, don't tell me where," because I knew, like, once he said, "Oh, I know your pastor," and I would have I would have stopped.
You
it.
were going to shut down.
Yeah.
Yeah, you would have shut down. How did you reconcile your sexuality with who you are in terms of your spirituality?
Honestly, there was a hour-long interview called "What Does the Bible Really Say About Homosexuality" that Yvette Flunder did.
I love her.
So do I. She's amazing.
Amazing.
And I listened to it for an hour, and then when I was done, I said, "You got to listen to it." And I told him to listen to it.
You have to send that to me.
I sure will.
And I
sure
listened
will.
to it for about maybe 24 hours, not consecutively. I've sent it to my friends.
Uh-huh.
I've probably listened to it recently, maybe within the last 30 days. Like, I just constantly... Because
To-
you can always
to-
get
to
some...
aff-
yeah,
to affirm yourself, yeah.
And you can always get something out of it, because all the time when you listen, sometimes you're listening for yourself or you're listening in the viewpoint of someone else.
Yeah.
And so it was a couple of people on there that she was like, look, now I'm going to listen for their viewpoint. and
Yeah.
why they said that or why they act
Yeah.
that way or why they feel that way. But she is amazing. And
She
it's,
is.
It's a great tool to start off with.
Absolutely.
And I just love her demeanor and how
Uh-huh.
she doesn't have to defend herself,
Yeah.
Raise her voice.
Mhm. She's very
knowledgeable.
even keeled.
She knows what she believes and she respects what you believe.
And
so-
she's not going to try to proselytize
Right,
you.
so-
Exactly.
Yeah.
So with that hour long, and when I tell you I sent it to everybody, I sent it to people that I thought were wavering on their sexuality. I sent it to people who were pastors who I knew were gay.
Yeah.
I sent it to family members. They
Yeah.
could find, relate to their family members who
Right.
are gay. I sent it to so many people on Facebook that Facebook I don't think would let me send it to any more people.
Because you had sent this.
that one time that I did it. Yes.
Right. Wow. So that was the beginning for you, Jason. And again, we're talking to Jason and Anthony Henderson Strong.
Yes.
Right.
And so that was the beginning for you to kind of chip away at it?
That was the beginning. And then, as God would have it, I was starting to meet more people who were affirming pastors or
Got it.
affirming ministers. And in speaking to them, they were able to say, yes, but consider this or consider that. And actually, when you start to study things and stop focusing on what you've been taught,
And conditioned to believe.
exactly, it made things a lot easier. And one of my really, really good friends, one thing he told me was, "This is your life. You have to live it." He said, and there's nothing in there that you're doing that's wrong. He said, now you can be gay, but be a sanctified gay. And by that means you don't be gay and use that as an excuse to be a whore or to do a whole bunch of other
Absolutely.
things. And not that I judge anybody who does, but that's just in terms of
Exactly.
our moral boundaries.
Exactly. Still have your boundaries.
Right.
Still have your boundaries. And a friend of mine many years ago said to me, he said, sometimes the gays just throw out all boundaries and all morals just because you're gay, and you don't have to do that. Just
Right.
because they're damning you to hell because you're gay doesn't mean that's your reality. But just because that's what they're telling you doesn't mean you have to throw everything else out too.
Exactly.
So okay, so go ahead. So you're in front of the house. You just pulled up. You're standing outside of the car. You're leaning in, talking to him. Jason is already clear who Anthony is.
Yes.
Anthony has not figured it out yet.
Yes.
You know he looks familiar, but you don't remember.
Right. And he invited me in, and he could take it from there.
You are trash.
What?
Anyway, so I invited him in, and lo and behold, here he is 12 years later.
We talked.
Wait a minute. So what did y'all do when
We
y'all got in the
talked every day
house?
since.
Did y'all touch and agree?
We touched and agreed.
Oh,
we laid hands
yeah.
and prayed.
Oh.
We did. And I remember
we carried on.
Really?
Yeah.
Carried on.
We carried on. It was
Did you
crazy.
see how? Listen, y'all. Did you see how they just tried to slide past that? Like I was gonna really let that
And,
go.
and he left a lot out. I mean, but it's so funny because when he invited me in,
Uh-huh.
now if I make sure I have this right, when I walked in the house, and he lived in North Philadelphia. If anybody knows about Philadelphia, North Philadelphia.
I rented a house in North Philadelphia
Yeah,
after
he rented a
college.
house.
I am not from North Philadelphia, and I have to be clear with
He's not
that.
from North Philadelphia. He's from Willow Grove, Pennsylvania. But he wanted to be closer, I guess, to
Work, 'cause I worked in Center City, Philadelphia.
But when I walked in the house, if I remember correctly, it was 1,000,000 people in the house.
So y'all touching and agreeing, and there's people
Well,
in the
listen
house?
to this. And they were having a what?
A revival or
No,
something?
so my coworker and I rented a 4-bedroom house, and he was like the father, or like really into the ballroom scene.
Okay.
Like big into the ballroom scene.
Yeah. For those of you listening, you have no idea what the ballroom scene is, go to YouTube or Netflix and look up Paris is Burning. We
There
can't
you go.
explain that right
It's
now.
a lot.
Go ahead.
And they were having a mini ball downstairs.
Did that turn you off, Anthony?
I can't remember. It
It
didn't
did
me
not
off
turn him
because
off.
I did go upstairs. I went up, and it was long, narrow stairs, but that's you have to know about North Philly.
I was going to say, that's very D.C., Maryland,
Yeah.
Philadelphia, North Philly.
Yeah.
But it was a lot of people down there, and one thing about it, they didn't pay attention to us. I mean, they were really into their ball, and at that time, I didn't know too much about what that was. I just knew they had moved all the furniture out, and everybody was walking back and forth. It was a little dark, and everybody was having a good time.
They was turning
and
it.
He whisked me upstairs.
Well, wait a minute, please. Pause right here. We're going to come back to whisking upstairs.
Okay.
So you need to tell me that he was a church kid that wasn't really reconciling his sexuality, but you living with these bald children?
But he was upstairs, yeah.
But no, what I'm trying to say is,
Well, as
what's
it's
fascinating is there was a piece of you that was yearning to live your truth anyway.
Well,
you understand what I'm saying?
yeah,
Because oftentimes, whether you're a church person or whether you're just a really closeted person like I was, I distanced myself from people that I knew were gay. So that was you were growing without even knowing you were growing.
Well, you know what though? I think I've always knew I was gay and accepted the fact that I was gay. What was the issue was that I had two different opinions being spoken in my ear. You know,
And you thought that being gay put you on the wrong side with God.
right. But I mean, as a teenager, I think at 16 I was in the house for all of like 3 seconds. I think I really couldn't go anywhere because my parents didn't play that, and the balls didn't start till like midnight. And my parents were like,
There was no trains from Willow Grove.
my parents said you 16, be in this house by 11:30, and the balls ain't start till midnight. So you were in the house by name only.
And that's conservative because they really be starting at 3 and 4. And
Right.
But go ahead. So he wished you upstairs, Anthony.
And we'll just say we had a memorable.
Clearly.
It was mind blowing, and I mean that literally. But one thing I remember too, as soon as we got done, because I'm skipping that part,
Okay.
is that he was like, "Are you hungry?" And I'm like,
Well, if it was
"Yeah."
as mind blowing as you say, you had to have had an
But
appetite.
I'm like, there's 1,000,000 people downstairs. I know you're not going to cook for me, and so
Well, why not? He had just serviced you upstairs.
he went to the local Chinese store, and if you know anything once again about Philadelphia and
DC balls,
Right.
yes,
yes.
their Chinese stores. So the food was so good. I was like,
Yes.
this Chinese food is really good.
Yes.
And so since then, every day I've had a meal prepared for me or brought for me by this man. I mean,
Really?
he really believes taking care of you, mind, body, and soul. So
Right.
I
There's nothing like a
appreciate
man
that.
from up top. I'm from up top.
And he
I
always
get
would,
it.
and he would
That's
always
it.
feed me. And it's so funny because as we got closer together, he would say, I'm leaving church early, or I'm not going to go to the other service. I'm going to, meet me at my house.
Right.
So he was adapting to, oh, wait, I'm enjoying this, and this is okay, and I don't have to be at church 24/7, 7 days a week.
Absolutely.
Because I was holiness.
And
Right. Yeah.
Sabbath holiness,
Right.
too. So
So let me ask you this: early on, Anthony, did you sense that he had like this struggle with God and his sexuality?
absolutely. 'Cause
Was it something that made you nervous and maybe you thought about pulling back?
It did make me pull back, but we can have a whole nother show about this whole topic.
And we can.
And one thing was, and everything moves quickly in the gay community. So
Come on, somebody.
I don't remember the timeline, but I do remember shortly thereafter, he moved out of that place. I moved out of the place I was at, and we were living.
November.
We were living together.
So wait, so how much time had elapsed?
Like 5 months.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
The children are cool.
And I would tell you,
But they say the lesbians are fast.
They are faster.
and I would tell you this one story. He's gonna probably say I have it all wrong, but I remember being in the house, and we had like.
This is after you moved into your place together.
Floor to ceiling windows, or bay windows. They were pretty big. Curtains were open, and he saw his pastor drive past. And was it you that he dived like under the bed because he didn't want his pastor to know that he was home because I was in there.
It wasn't really under the bed though.
Well, I don't remember.
But you did die.
It was 12 years ago, but it was something that
I
we
made
had to
sure
stop
to-
and talk about it.
Right.
Like, what is going on here? Like, oh, and I remember he even said something about turn off the light. I mean, it was deep. It was like, and I was like, yeah,
Well,
turn
this
off
is
the
your
light.
experience. This is how you
Yeah, and
remember
I'm
it.
like,
Yeah.
we turned off the light because he driving past, and so I remember that incident. And then one incident, I called. I was a little shady.
Mm-hmm.
I had went to the church without him being there because he had got me hooked on to church because
Uh-huh.
I wanted to be around him. I wanted to see him, and that's where he spent most of his time.
Right.
One service he didn't go to or didn't get there on time because of work or something, and I happened to be there.
Uh-huh.
And I think I was by that time a member of the church.
Okay.
But the pastor still didn't know of us or definitely me living together.
Right.
So I asked the pastor to drive me home, and I made sure he took me to our house.
You were messy.
And he was like, "Well, this is Jason's house," as we said.
Mind you, his
outside.
dad lived right around the corner from the church.
Yeah, he could have just took me to my father's.
dad-
Your so
Yeah.
Anthony's father lived around the corner.
Literally around the
But
corner.
Anthony was trying to grow you. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I was like, "Take me home," and he drove, and we pulled up. He was like, "This is Jason's house." I said, "No, this is our house."
Come on, somebody.
And I believe we had a whole conversation about it, but I don't remember what was said. But one thing I do remember was he was like, "Well, why Jason didn't talk to me?"
He said that.
And when I walked in, I said, "Jason, the man just wants you to talk to him."
Right.
Because Jason looked at him as a pastor, a father, a mentor, a spirit, all of
Yes.
the above, so.
It's so interesting because when you say that, and I want your perspective on what he just told us, but what's so interesting is when you just said that, it reminded me of this episode that happened on Being Mary Jane. I don't know if you guys watched Being Mary Jane. I'm not really so much a fan of it now, but the first 2 seasons were golden. So there was a scene where, if you remember, there was a black news anchor that worked with her. This is when she was still in Atlanta. He was closeted. He had a white partner. And Apatha Murkison, I think her name is. She's an actress.
Yes.
She was on Lackawanna Blues. She was the star of that. She played this anchor's his mom. And the man who plays on Greenleaf, Mac, who just got killed, plays her husband, his father. And so there was this whole dialogue because he brings Mary Jane over because they're coming into Atlanta for a couple days in between a flight. He brings Mary Jane over to pretend like they're dating and they're engaged and all this other stuff. And so they're literally sitting on the couch and they're just watching them with this charade. And so finally the mother says, "You're gay." And then the father goes on to say, "What happened in our relationship that you thought that you could not tell me that?" He said, "I don't care who you sleeping with." He said, "What happened to us that you didn't think you could talk to me?" When I tell you it was powerful.
Oh, my God.
I mean, it was that's when they were writing on that show.
Wow.
Oh,
But I want to hear your perspective.
that's a powerful.
It's
that's
powerful.
a powerful
It's
statement.
powerful because it gave you a different vantage point. Because usually we see the vantage point of the person
Right.
that's gay and why they struggle with it. But then from the perspective of a parent or a best friend or a relative who's saying to you, "Why did you feel that you couldn't share that with me?" That was really, really powerful. So what was your memory of that? Do you remember it that same way?
Probably not as dramatic.
I'm sure, right?
I'm sure.
I've never dove anywhere, so
Okay.
other than off a diving board.
Right.
But I definitely know that he did not know, and I remember that it following day when I was at work, my pastor called me, and so he's always called me son. I've called him dad, even though like both of my parents are alive and well. But this is just like a spiritual thing. So he was like, "So you and Anthony," because that's not what he calls them. But he said, "So you and Anthony live together?" And I was like, he said, "So why didn't you tell me that?" I was like, "Why would I?" And this was when he was in the throes of like real hellfire preaching.
Before affirming
Oh,
church.
really?
Yeah, now he's not so much. And, and we've had conversations, and he's actually coming down here to preach and in next month or whatever. And he's, he's softened a lot and he's, I can't say that he would probably like that he's 100% okay with everything, but he does understand that there are nuances and differences that he cannot explain.
Right.
And
So let me ask you, so how did you, and we're going to come around to the adoption because you guys are here to talk about how you, but I want to give some background because I think you guys are a great example, not just of an example of adopting, but also couples that have sustained, that have grown, and that have travailed and made it through different things. Because I think a lot of times with young people, or whomever, and not just gay people, they think that the relationship has to be virtually perfect in order to get to 12 years or
Right.
15 years. And oftentimes we run at the first sign that the relationship is not perfect. So when you were sitting in that church, hold your thought, don't forget, please don't forget. When you were sitting in that church and he was preaching against homosexuality, how did you feel? Or did it just kind of further compound what you were already believing?
I think at a certain point, it's almost as if you are a child whose parent yells a lot. You know how you kind
Got
of
it.
get immune to
Yeah.
what you're hearing?
Yeah.
And I think that's what happens a lot of times.
Right.
It's kind of like, oh, this is what they're saying, and I just don't agree with this part because I don't agree with 100% of what anybody says. So it's at a certain point, you're like, okay. And then there was things I knew about it.
That you know about him?
Yes.
How you doing? Oh.
So it was almost like, and so it was almost as though there are things you have to do for the pomp and circumstance of the
Absolutely.
people.
To kind of throw off the scent of the dog so that
Right.
the dog
Right.
doesn't sniff you out.
Right, but the dogs
Yeah.
were always sniffing. So I think at a certain point, it just became like, okay, here we go again. And then we moved on to something else.
Right.
And now I don't hear it at all.
Okay, so you're 5 months in.
Yeah, we're 5 months in. But what I wanted to say was the pastor that we're talking about, he was the first, and we know a plethora of pastors, preachers, elders. I mean, we both did kind of grow up in the church, so we know plenty. But he was the only one that reached out when we did adopt and
Really?
say, I would like to pray for him.
Yeah.
I would like to pray for
Really?
his son. When you come to town, I need to lay my hands on him and pray.
That is beautiful.
And not only was he the only one, he was the only one, and so many others that I thought were in our camp from day one was like, I'm a distance myself. You know, I'm happy that he's going to be such a blessed child. I'm like, no, we're blessed because we have him.
Absolutely.
But no, we're not. I'm not going to lay my hands on him. No, you can't stand in front of my church. You know, it was just really taking aback of how many people received us and a lot of people that didn't receive us
Right.
when we did adopt.
So you're 5 months in, living together. And so what challenges were there? Did you know when you first started getting together, had you had conversations around adopting or having children, or it was just too soon at this point?
Oh, that was very soon.
So
It
you
was-
hadn't talked about whether or
yeah.
not you wanted children.
I
or you
always
wanted
knew
children.
I always knew I was going to have children.
But you hadn't talked about it yet.
Right, because
Okay.
I mean, you know, one, it was the gay community. And this
Right.
was
And this was 12 years ago, so
Right.
people weren't really
This was
adopting.
2005.
Right.
No.
And people weren't getting married at the rate that they're getting married.
Right.
Gay people, anyway.
Yeah.
weren't
Right.
getting married. So let me ask this. Were there ever challenges that maybe caused like serious strains where maybe you broke up for a month or two or...
not. I mean, we've had challenges. I don't think we never broke
we've
up.
never broken
We've
up.
never, but we've had issues. I mean, we've had.
Every relationship
Right,
is.
and I'll be honest and transparent. Like we've had infidelity issues. We had he's walked in on me and almost cleared the whole neighborhood.
Come on, somebody with the
Right,
truth.
right. I mean, that's the thing.
But that's it. But that's the thing. And I've said this so many times. In order to get to longevity, sometimes you have to go through some things. And that doesn't mean that you have to give permission to a person to cheat. That's not what I'm saying.
Exactly.
Because it may not show up in your relationship as infidelity. It may show up in your relationship as your partner has horrible ass credit.
Right.
And he can't get shit. And so you can't even get no house together. Or let alone adopt. And you know what I'm saying? So the question is, what are you willing to sacrifice for the love, for the relationship, for the years? So go ahead.
So, we went through that, and I think that was probably one of the hardest
The
times.
most strained, yeah.
One
So
of the
how did you
hardest
repair it? How did you, Anthony, get through it?
Well, by that time, we were fairly into the relationship. It had been about maybe 3 years, 4 years, because we were in LA by this time.
Because
So
you guys had moved to LA.
we moved to LA, yeah. So 5 years in, I can tell you another pivotal moment for our relationship was, of course, the spirituality, the pastor, and him knowing who we were together.
That was a hurdle.
But the other one was that I told him that I wanted to move to LA because I was traveling there like once a week or a lot, and I was always gone. And so I said, we should move to LA. And then I didn't think no more of it. And then he
Right.
just walked in the house one day and was like, sure, let's move to LA. And then about a week, 2 weeks later, he was like, oh, I got a job in LA, so you're going to have to meet me in LA. He left before I did.
He got the job first.
And right. So he left before I did. And so the problem came in with that is his mother. So now we have my baby is moving across country. So I had to deal with that where I think his mother resented the whole relationship a little bit just because
She felt like you were pulling him from her.
Yeah, that's what I
Yeah.
felt like.
Are you an only
family-
child?
No, it's me and my sister, but
Okay.
our family is very tight.
Close,
and I mean
yeah.
just not even just my sister and I and our parents, but I mean even my mom's side of the family. So to give a brief instance, it's my mom lives here, my aunt lives directly across the street. My grandmother lives a block down the
Got it.
street. Her our aunt across the street from her.
Right.
You know, so my entire neighborhood
Consists
literally
of your family.
literally are cousins.
Right.
You know, and I'm not using the word literally. I
get it.
literally.
Yeah, yeah.
And so we grew up as brother. All my cousins grew up as brother
Brothers
and
and sisters,
sisters.
yeah.
And so I was the one that moved 3,000 miles away.
Right.
And wasn't in the military because we've had some in the military
Right.
that, you know, but he moved across the country to be with a man.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but it wasn't to be with a man because we were
Together
together
already.
and
Right.
living.
So had they been introduced to Anthony?
Not to my recollection. I'll let Jason say that.
So you're 5 years in and you're a
Well, no, after about 5 years before we moved,
well,
yeah,
before-
because you came to Thanksgiving.
Take note of how high his voice went up.
Right.
Usually when
Oh.
a person goes up and then up in that key, when you go up in that key like that.
And I do remember coming for Thanksgiving, but you know you always have that friend that comes for Thanksgiving who doesn't have any family or from out of town.
Exactly.
I think I felt like that. It wasn't
Right.
more like I'm his partner at the
Right,
time.
right.
Well, okay, so we moved in with each other. We started our anniversary January 17th.
Okay.
Right,
So you're coming up on
2005.
one.
Right.
No.
No, not January. I'm sorry, July.
Oh, okay.
January.
Okay,
Yeah,
got it.
July 17th, and so we moved in with each other November 1st.
Mm-hmm.
He came to my parents' house for Thanksgiving, right there.
I did.
And it wasn't strange because I told everybody at the family cookout Labor Day weekend.
Well, yeah, and actually we did have a Labor Day. We did have a going away cookout, so people knew. It just wasn't spoke of,
Right.
And it wasn't no love lost, no love gained. It was
Right.
just like unspoken.
Yeah.
They're moving away. And you know the aunts and uncles love you. That's
Right.
my baby. Don't say nothing about him.
Right,
You know,
right.
we love Anthony. You know, he's
Right,
a family.
right.
But you know, his mom and dad is a little bit more reticent. You know,
Yeah.
his dad is a preacher. You know, and his mom, you know, helps run her, you know, the church. So,
Okay.
you know, they have that.
So you guys are
laid-back-
steeped in the church.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. now, on the other hand, with my parents, my mother is heavily into the church. She just had her 70th birthday, thank God. But my dad was all in, and my dad is a Marlboro man. So he's like, oh, I got to get a king size bed for y'all. Y'all can
Really?
in the 5th bedroom.
So
of the house.
so your family, your parents had met Jason.
Oh, cool. My parents are so cool with everything right from the door.
Okay.
Like,
His dad said, I brought a king size bed for the bedroom upstairs so when you stay over, y'all can have fun. That's what his dad
That's
said.
what my dad said.
And my reaction was, I'm not even cool with you like that, so that we could joke.
But that was quite progressive.
It
I
was
like that.
progressive.
and my dad has always been the type of person, as long as you can bring somebody home that I can relate to, watch the game with,
Yeah.
play some pool with.
Yeah.
And so it's funny, is Jason's voice could go high, but he could change a tire in 10 minutes and play,
Yeah.
and he knows everything about sports, and, you
Right,
know,
right.
and pop culture.
Right,
so
right.
he's around.
Well-rounded person.
Yes.
So what was your coming out, Anthony? And then we'll move into
To my
the-
parents.
Yeah, yeah. So
I always tell this story. That's why I said we have to write a book. We have so many crazy stories. But when I was younger, we would always go to Florida. So I think I became like 16, time to drive age. And my mom was like, take the wheel. We drove to Florida together, just me and her, from Philadelphia to Florida. And as I was driving, she just finally decided to have this talk with me, I guess because I couldn't go nowhere. And I remember her saying, no matter what, I will always love you. No matter who you are, who you want to be, I'll always love you. And
so she never spoke about
never
the gay
said-
thing, but
she
she was
never-
just dropping little seeds.
Yeah, and then since then, of course, whenever, and I've always been in a relationship. Jason will always say, I've always been in a long-term relationship. Before Jason, I was with somebody for 7 years. Before that person, it was 4 years.
What
And
is your sign?
I'm an Aquarius.
And what's your sign, Jason?
Aquarius.
I always have to go to bed knowing that somebody is thinking about me and love me. So,
Really?
Yeah. So
You're such a romantic.
yeah. So
Why you laughing?
Because I'm not.
he's sort of he's not at all.
Really?
He shows his love by cooking.
Have you guys ever done like the 5 love languages?
Someone told me to.
Yeah, you should do it. Go. It's like the number 5, lovelanguages.com, and it will tell you like some need affirmation.
Yeah.
Which you're so beautiful today. Da 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 da. Some people do service. They gravitate to people who do things of service like cooking and
Yeah.
that kind of thing, like you're talking about. Some people enjoy touching. Like you got to touch them to know that for them to know that you love them.
Yeah.
But go ahead.
And even back to adoption, when my mother heard that we were going to adopt, she said, "Go get my grandchild."
Grandson.
Okay,
Okay,
at the
so
time she didn't know what it was going to be.
Right.
But she was all in. No questions asked. I believe in you guys.
Right.
And I think we come from such a loving, touchy-feely family that sometimes even 12 years in, Jason is taken back by my mother because she spends a lot of time with us because we have she has a grandchild, from us, and it's like, your mom just sent us a Halloween card. I'm like,
my mother does that. Valentine's
every
Day.
card,
baskets,
every holiday
yeah.
you get the card, and she's like, is that normal? I'm like, yeah, that's normal,
Right.
So
Are there other grandkids that do you have siblings?
yeah, I have siblings, but they don't have any children.
They don't have any kids. And then with you?
My sister, her and her husband have a 3-year-old.
Okay, so it's just 2 grandkids on your side, and then you guys' kid is just the one on your side.
Yep.
So how many years in were you together before you started talking about adopting?
Probably, 5, 7, probably about 2010.
Well, we've always talked about.
We had Marcel for 3 years.
Going on 4.
4 years. Actually, 4 years.
Right.
We've had Marcel for 4 years. So probably 5 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you were about 7 years in.
Mm-hmm.
And so what was the process like? Was it a long process?
Okay, so
And are there like certain obstacles because it's a same-sex couple?
no.
Okay.
And I'll say this. So everything is based on whatever agency you choose.
Okay.
And the processes vary. And, you'll get the breaking news. We're in the process of adopting another one right now.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
Which is why we
Yes,
had to go to Tucker because we
Okay.
had to,
Do something.
we had a training we had to complete today in order for we have a teenage boy that's getting ready to come into our home.
Really?
And we didn't want everybody to know who it was, a boy or a teenager.
Well, that's fine. He doesn't matter. Well, they're going to see the pictures. I mean, when it happens. So.
Okay.
Or we have a child, is going to be coming into our home in a few weeks.
Okay.
And this was the last training that they were going to have before they placed the child.
Made it official.
So we were.
So how did you go about finding the agent? Did you just Google it, or did somebody refer you?
Okay, so, we'll start with California. In California, which is where we adopted our first child, we went to Southern California Foster Family Adoption Agency. And how we found out about them was, have you heard of the comedian Alec Mapa?
Yeah, the Asian guy.
Right.
He used to be on
Ugly Betty and all that.
in that show. I can't remember the other show, but yes, I know exactly what you're
So
talking about.
he and his husband adopted through that agency. And at that time, I worked for the Los Angeles Gay and Lesbian Center.
Okay.
And so they did a lot of shows through the center. He had a show called My Baby Daddy, which was about the adoption process.
Okay.
And I was like, oh, that's the agency he went through. Well, let's call that agency.
Okay.
So while we were in LA, we called that agency.
Okay.
And they were like, okay, we'll come in for an orientation.
Right.
And then we had to sit through 4 8-hour classes every Saturday for a
Okay.
month.
For a month. Okay.
For a month, which was like teaching you about all the aspects of a child coming into your home, and then what to do with certain behaviors, and
Everybody should go.
It's really like a 24-hour parenthood class.
Yeah.
Very informative.
And come to find out, like the mayor went through that agency. A lot of celebrities was going through that agency, which we didn't know
That were
But they're-
in the process of adopting.
Right.
Okay.
But it's a really, really good agency
Right.
in California, and they they love gays. They love the gays there. So we went and sat through the class. They came and did the home study, which that's probably the most
Intrusive.
arduous
Okay.
intrusive process because if you don't know the home study, you think they're just coming in and walking through your home.
Right.
Well, no. A home study is where they sit you and your partner down if you're together, or, and they basically interview you, and it's a social worker.
Right.
So they have a mental health component.
Yeah.
So they know how to get you to answer certain questions about your past.
Right.
And so you're sitting there, and if you think you could have hid something from your partner,
Right.
they're bringing up
They're pulling out
things,
stuff from you.
Right.
and then they'll do is okay. So then I'll be back next week, and I'm going to interview Anthony by himself. And then I'll interview you by yourself.
Right.
And Marcel's of a certain age now, so even at 5, they would interview him.
Right.
To make sure that it's conducive to
And
a
like
child.
perfect example, if 2 + 2 don't equal 4,
Yeah.
they have a red flag. So when they interview me and they ask me a question like, "Well, how often do you guys have sex?" and I say, "Twice a week," they'll say okay. And then if they ask him and he say 6 times a week, that's a big difference.
That's
so
a big yeah.
they're going to put that question down like, come to Jesus moment. Now, what's going on in the sex
Right,
department?
right.
And why is one person having sex more than the other? And why
Right,
y'all don't have these numbers
right.
together? I mean, you really have to have...
Because something like that you should know.
Right.
I mean,
You
even
should-
if you said 4 and he said probably 5.
Yeah,
I mean that's
okay.
right.
Yeah.
So you would have to have your stories together, and even when it comes to your siblings and them finding out, so you don't have a close relationship with your mother, but you have one with your father. Now we need to know why,
Right.
Because that's going to affect this child when it comes in. So we need to know
Right.
what your mental state is
Right.
before the child comes in.
Absolutely.
So it's very grueling and just very. Like you said, it was just like, oh my God, they have to come today,
Right.
of all days.
And then, of course, life happens, so there probably were days that you weren't really
Yeah.
prepared for them, even though you knew they were coming.
Right.
And there probably were days that things just weren't working out, that you wanted them to come.
I mean, you have to have I'm exaggerating, like the light at the certain,
Got it.
But they're checking cabinets, they're making sure that all the knives and stuff are put up properly, because you go through all that training. Like, there has to be a lock and key, just things of
Right.
that nature.
So were there things that came up in that interview process that perhaps you didn't know about Anthony or you didn't know about Jason when you were like, you didn't tell me that?
Well, I'm going to say no, because at that point we had been together so long, and we're brutally honest with each
Yeah.
other.
Right.
Where it makes some of our friends nervous when they're around,
Right.
because we bicker a lot. We're like 2 grumpy old men, and it's never.
it's out of love.
Yeah.
You know your love.
Right.
I love language.
You know your
Yeah.
love.
And they have
Exactly.
to argue.
Exactly.
And that's the thing, is he loves to argue, and I could say okay and walk away.
And he still
but
wanna
he's
argue.
not done.
He ain't done.
But let me tell you,
That's that up top shit.
these social workers that came to our house, every time they would leave, they would go, "Wow, I've learned something." I mean, because we were 2 gay black men, so they're
Right.
like, "Well, first of all, you live in Baldwin Hills. Y'all on the hill? Yeah,
In California,
Yeah,
for the
we're
people
on the
listening.
hill. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, I never heard that terminology. Oh, wow.
Right,
I
it
get
was.
Terminology
It was.
like
Well,
what?
Well, it was, and I'm trying to think of what exactly happened, but our social worker who came out and did the home study in California, she was like, "This is so fascinating." She she used to love coming to talk. She said, "Cause I don't." She didn't go to church, is what it was. So it was church and sexuality. Inclusive and affirming ministries.
Got it.
So she didn't know what that was. And
What
she
that
was like,
was.
so there's a church just of gays. And that's how she said, so everybody's gay in the church? I'm like, well, I don't know if I'm not sleeping with everybody, so I can't tell you if everybody's gay. I'm like, but the pastor is openly gay, and he's not bashing. So there's nothing wrong with that.
Right.
I'm like, well, no, there's nothing wrong with that. Watch yourself.
Right.
But she's like, no, I just did shit. I never knew that this was a thing.
Right.
She said, I got to go and look. And then she moved to San Francisco. I'm like, baby, you have to find a whole bunch of
Listen,
them.
you're about to be entrenched in it. So you were working for the
Los Angeles Gay and Lesbian,
Center, and what were you doing?
Wardrobe stylist.
Wardrobe styling. Okay, so do they look at like your salary or your profession and that
absolutely.
kind of thing? So
Yes.
is there like a threshold where you got to make a minimum amount to adopt?
But they do want to make sure that you're able to take care of a child without the stipend that you get.
Okay.
So
right.
because
Got it.
what a lot of people may or may not know is that you do get a monthly stipend
From the state.
from the state to assist
Right.
in helping the child, but they want to make sure that
you can take care of yourself and the child without that.
because there's times when like we would get it late, or
Yeah,
like months would go on.
Absolutely.
So you shouldn't be using this to live off
Absolutely.
of. And
So
we
it
did-
wouldn't always come on time.
right, and yeah. And I think like now they're like pretty good. You already you know the week that it's going to
Yeah,
come.
you
so
know
you
the
don't,
window, yeah.
So I think that was pretty much it. They did look at. I don't think they even went into like they didn't look in your bank accounts.
Right.
They asked for pay stubs.
But
And
they
that was
did they
it.
check like credit and that kind
No.
of thing?
No credit.
No.
Right, but they want to make sure that you have a stable home, that kind of thing. So how? Well, go ahead.
They're definitely going to check your home.
Right.
They're going to come several times, a couple of people, and check the home. Not just look,
Right.
but open.
Did they interview like friends or family? I know your family was on
Yes,
the East Coast, but
yes.
how did
We
they
had to
do
give
that?
phone numbers and
Phone
emails.
numbers, emails.
Okay, so
Yep.
they
And
called.
all my friends, I love my friends. They were like, you know, your people just called me, right?
Really?
They said I wanted to check with you before I called them back.
Right.
I said I love my black friends. They don't play. They're like, okay.
Absolutely. So how long was the whole process from the beginning to the end? Like from the first time you filled out the application and sat in those 4 8-hour classes and them visiting the house? And...
For us, it was about 9 months, but that was long. Because it can really be as fast as you want it. So from the time you your first thing is to do the month-long classes.
Right.
And when you get to the end of the classes, they're like, okay, you need to go get a physical. You need to go get, provide this paperwork. You need to schedule this. So everything works really how fast you work.
Right.
Right.
So if you prolong taking the classes, then...
And that was the thing is, when we took the classes, we were in a 1-bedroom. So we were waiting till our lease was up, and then we were going to move to a 2-bedroom. So we had to get all these things
so you wanted
in
different
place.
things in place before you actually...
Exactly, because they would come and if you're in a 1-bedroom, they're like, well, you can't have anything over 18 months.
Right.
But we know we didn't want that.
Right.
So we had to wait.
So you chose how old the child was?
They ask you everything, and I would definitely say is when they give you your paper, they'll give you, everybody gets paperwork that'll say what you will and won't accept.
Got it.
And you have to be brutally honest.
Yeah.
And you know what I mean? And you have to be real.
So you're saying in terms of, I don't want a white child, or I don't want an Asian child, or I don't want a child that's drug addicted.
Exactly.
Right.
I don't want a child that was born with HIV. I mean, I don't. You have to be honest, because what will happen is all these kids are in the system, and they will call you and say, "I have this child." And I think the first phone call we got was that we had a brother and sister set, and they're ready for adoption. The parents are both bipolar.
So there's a strong
and I said, well, are the kids? He said the kids haven't been tested. And I said, well, we're going to say no because that's just a bit much for us.
Because if both parents carry that gene, then more than likely the child is going to have
it. It's a lot of paperwork, if I remember correctly.
He doesn't like paperwork at all.
When I say it's a lot, you literally have to do a little bit today, a little bit tomorrow. I mean, it's going to take you 2 weeks to get all the paperwork. Really? And then you always want to make copies of it because they will lose stuff. And then you have to do it all over again. Right. And you have to stay on them. You have to stay on them because you're not the only one.
And you will stay on your mate.
Yeah.
Because, so there's, because they'll ask you questions about you, questions about your mate, questions about your child.
Right.
And of course you could fly through your questions.
But if
and
he
then
hasn't
there's
done
things,
his part.
and I'm like, now Anthony, because Anthony don't like paperwork. Right. He's not going to do it. He don't care what's going on. We're not going to have nothing if you want me to do it. Right. And so
you had to do his
paperwork. So I'm at work, literally filling out his, and I'm like on the phone with him. Okay, I need you to tell me this. What's going on? So
just to pick my flights. I just don't like the. I just like to go work. I don't like to do the work leading up to the work.
So let me ask this. So you knew how old you wanted the child that you would adopt to be?
Yes.
How old? What age did you say? Was it a range? Or was it like
you give a range? You give a range.
7,
you give a range, and I think at that time we said 0 to 3.
Yeah, we wanted a safe surrender.
We said
baby
0 to 3.
You wanted a what?
Safe surrender baby.
Which is when someone brings the baby and leaves it at a hospital or a fire station.
Like on This Is Us.
Right.
Okay.
We kept saying we didn't want nobody else's problems. We're young. We just wanted to love a child, so we just wanted a newborn. But moving forward, we just realized there was so many people in the system that it was older than safe surrender baby that
could benefit.
Yes.
But as things get real too, you start to really reevaluate. Because for me, I was like, well, you know what? I think I don't really want a baby anymore. Right. Because I want I want a baby, or I want a child that if something's wrong, they could say my stomach hurts, I'm hungry, I need to go to the bathroom.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I got nervous trying to decipher cries, and I was like, you know what? Maybe that's not really for me.
Your first was an actual baby.
No. 3.
He was 3. Okay.
Yep.
So not bad.
Mm-hmm.
So
This was good.
Right. So how did you? Because we talk very freely. So how did you decide? Did you guys have a conversation privately or beforehand? How would you approach having the conversation with him about having 2 male parents? Because once he starts going to school and...
Well, they asked you that in the home study.
They asked you how you're going to handle that?
Right. And they said, when would you tell? And I said, I would tell him before his first day of school. And she said, why? I said, well, he has 2 dads. And either he's going to pick him up sometime or I'm going to pick him up.
Right.
So they're going to notice that he's staying daddies.
Right.
And there's never a woman that's coming to pick them up. Right. And the kids are quick.
Yes, they are.
She said, I never thought about that.
The kids are quick.
Yeah.
So we told him that.
How old were you?
3.
He was 3.
And he's out. How old now?
7.
Okay.
When we received him, he was 3 years old. He was already reading, so he was able to comprehend. And we put him in a school in West Hollywood. So you know West Hollywood
Absolutely.
is known
It's
for
very
the
gay friendly.
community.
Yeah.
So there were
other kids that were
Exactly.
already familiar, and I think he taken to us from day one, and Jason could tell you all those stories. That's why we have to put all this in a book. I mean, the day he walked into our house for the first time, he beeline to his room. Like he knew it was his. He was comfortable with us, hugging us, loving us.
So how many times had you met him before he actually moved in?
3 times.
Maybe about 3 times.
So he wasn't familiar.
And listen to this, it was 3 times within 2
A week.
weeks. A week.
A week.
Okay.
Maybe a week
Week
and a
and a
half at the
half.
most.
And now, that's not normally how it happens. That's how it happens for us because they were trying to get him placed because where he was at, they didn't want him there. So we had to move him out. But he came with us.
Okay.
So it was a fast process.
Right. Do you guys have contact with his parents?
No.
No.
Well, biological, no.
Okay. So how do you...
biological is
Got it.
issues and other stuff, so
Right.
they're like completely removed.
Got it.
However, this is a unique situation. Bio mom had 3 children. Marcel is the middle.
Okay.
So the oldest, which he's in contact with, is Deja, who lives with a single black female.
Okay.
Then the baby lives with a white couple.
Okay.
And we make sure that we always
They stay
are
in
together.
contact.
Yeah.
Right. So they've come
So
to
he
our
has
house.
contact with his siblings.
Yeah,
Yes.
they literally
Okay.
when in June we had his birthday party in Philadelphia. They all flew to Philly to come to
'Cause
the
they
birthday
live in
party.
California?
In California.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, all the children still stay in contact.
And just for you guys listening, you guys now live in Atlanta.
Atlanta.
In Atlanta,
So his biological siblings live in California.
Correct.
Yes, and so we commute back and forth to see them, and they have been up once to see us. And I just love our dynamic because, like Jason said, his older sister has a single black mom, and his younger brother has 2 Caucasian heterosexual.
Yes.
So it's like, wow, what a dynamic. And then you have the 2 black gays in the middle. So we all come together. We all parent differently, but we all love one another.
Right.
They all came to our wedding in California.
Okay.
So
They were part of the wedding
Really?
in the wedding pictures. Like,
Really?
we consider ourselves like one big family.
Right.
But one of the things that I remember us definitely sitting down and talking about was, what was he going to call us?
Oh.
Interesting. Because at first we was like, I think at first when we talked about what we was gonna call our parents, it was gonna have a hangnail. It was gonna be Grandma Jackie, Grandma Linda, until he got to know who they were, because he already had people in their lives that had those titles, already.
Yeah.
So I became father.
So you guys have really thought this out.
Let me tell you, the agency that we went through, they help you with all
Right.
this. They help you.
Amazing.
I mean, it's just-
Amazing.
It really is.
So go ahead, finish. So you said so.
So we sat down and it was like, okay, he's going to call me father, Jason daddy. And I remember having this conversation with my mom. I had to call my mom one day. I was like, Mom, you're going to meet Marcelino. We're coming up, town. We're coming to town. And she was like, oh, I can't wait to meet my grandson. And so she was so adamant that that's her grandson. I said, well, hey, he doesn't know who you are, so you're going to have to be Grandma Jackie. Oh, no, I'm not Grandma Jackie. I'm Grandma. Because she's so old school. She was like 65 around there, so she's like, oh, no, I'm Grandma. I said, it's not out of disrespect. It's just that
We want to honor
Yeah.
the family that he had before he met you guys.
and to transition into, okay, you are Grandma.
Yeah,
so
let him
now
do
she's
that, yeah.
Mama, and Jason's mom is not Grandma Linda no more. She's just Grandma.
Right.
So
But he did that.
We gradually.
It just kind of happened organically.
Yeah. Well, we started calling them that when we referenced them.
Right.
We didn't.
Okay.
I didn't agree with names.
Yeah.
I didn't agree with, because that's not. And
You didn't agree with like Grandma Jackie.
right,
Okay.
and that, I think that was where we did have a little friction with that, because he was like, well, how is he going to know? I said, how did you know? You know what I mean? And that was the thing, like, every child has more than one grandmother and more than one grandfather.
Right.
And you know.
Right.
And there's not many occasions when all 4 grandparents are in the room.
Right.
Where it's just
so confusing. Yeah.
and kids will go to who they want.
Right.
They don't just look and say, hey, grandma, and not pay attention or give eye contact.
Well, let me ask this. So, in terms of this agency that you guys went through, they're located in California.
Yes.
What's the name of it again?
Southern California Foster Family and Adoption Agency.
So, if a person living in Georgia wanted to adopt, could they go through that agency, or they have to
No,
find a place here?
now we're doing our second adoption with
A place here.
Lutheran Services of Georgia.
Uh-huh.
That's here. and they're in Atlanta on Peachtree now. They're good. And I think they're good.
But your experience with the other place was...
LA was so on it. It was it was like top notch.
They prepared you.
It was top notch. And so we still fall back on a lot of what we learned with them.
So because you have that experience, this one isn't so bad
And
because
we know
you
what to
already
expect,
you know what to expect.
Right. Now, I will say a lot of it was the same. It's the same. We had to do the same paperwork. You had to get fingerprinted. You have to, you had to do all of that.
Does it help that you already have gone through the process and you have a...
It helps us because of the knowledge, but other
they
than
don't
that,
care about
they
that.
don't care because it was a different place. And so we go through here, it's Lutheran Services of Georgia, and you have, they do what is called an impact class, which is their 24 hours of parenting classes.
Okay, so theirs isn't set up like how LA was, where it was 4 8-hour ones?
How was it? How many hours was it here?
Well, here we was doing 8-hour days.
Was it 4? But it wasn't 4.
It might have been longer. Was it longer?
No, I think it was 16 here, or maybe it was 3. I think
Okay,
it was either
just subtle
2 or 3
differences.
weeks.
Okay.
2 or
Yeah.
3 weeks. And
But it's
then
not going back to school all over again.
Yeah.
Trust. You're in,
You get
you're
a
in class,
binder.
you get a binder. You're taking a bunch of tests.
Oh,
know.
you take
Oh, we
tests?
took a test today.
Did you have to take tests for LA?
yes,
Yes.
but not. I mean, when you hear tests, don't think tests like, Lord, I failed, I can't get.
Like you
It's-
got to memorize.
Right. The thing is, they want you to have the gist of it, and if you, for some reason, do not get something right, they're like, okay, let's revisit this.
So what are some of the things on the test? Like
So
in terms of like if like how would you handle certain behavioral things based on
yes,
what they trained you?
exactly.
Okay.
So today we did what is a TBM, Therapeutic Behavioral Management class.
Mm-hmm.
So you're talking about behaviors and how you do certain things. Well, if your child comes storming in your home, slamming their book down and swinging open the door, you screaming at the child, but we didn't address the behavior that caused them to want to come in the
Right.
house that way. Because
Right.
no child just walks in the house mad.
without a reason, yeah.
You know, so let's get to the root of what that issue is first, and then we progress to find out what's going on. But a lot of us grew up in, I don't care what's going on, you don't walk through my door that kind of way.
Right.
But that's not,
That doesn't, that's not serving the child what they really
exactly.
need.
So you go through those kind of things,
Got it.
and or addressing. They may have come from a home where mom beat dad, or there was domestic violence, and you are all sitting around watching a movie. You didn't realize it,
Then
and
it
it's the burning
triggers-
bed,
yeah.
and it triggers something in him. Then all of a sudden he shuts down,
Right.
and you're like, well, what's going on?
Right.
So it's just giving you the tools to
tools.
kind of open up the dialogue
Right.
and let's go ahead and de-escalate what's happening.
Okay. So have you guys had conversations with him about his parents, or how did you language that, and how do you articulate to him that we have now become your parents? Was that
We
like
have-
a difficult?
It wasn't difficult, but we have. But bio mom, actually the parents have been out of the picture since literally I think
Okay.
maybe 3 weeks.
Okay.
And that's because DHS came in because when you are firstborn, you had those appointments to meet the doctors.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they weren't going to the appointments, so and they were staying in a shelter.
Okay.
So the social workers at the shelter were like, well, she hasn't been making these appointments to see the doctor and, postnatal care, whatever. I don't know if that's really a word, postnatal, but the newborn care or whatever. So, that's when the system started getting involved. And then they found the dad, and the dad had him for a week and was like, I can't do this, and brought him back.
Okay.
And then he was in the foster care system.
Okay. And then so somebody had him before he came to you guys.
2 families.
2 different families.
Yeah.
So have you noticed any sort of abandonment issues, or how do you counteract it?
There's attachment issues.
Attachment issues.
And so we are constantly affirming we're not leaving.
Got it.
You
So
know?
how do they play out? Like, how does he demonstrate, or how has he demonstrated to you that there was some attachment stuff where he was worried?
He doesn't like to be alone too long.
Got it.
So like kids can go in their room and play, and
Right.
you don't have to hear from him. He'll go in his room and play for a period of time,
But then he come
and then he
back.
come back and want to sit up underneath you or play on top
sure
of you
you're
or do
around.
Make
whatever.
sure you're there.
Yeah.
And he'll say, I just coming to check on you.
Yeah, that's what it's
I'm just coming to check on you.
Right, so
That's adorable.
and that's kind of how that manifests itself with him.
So did you realize that's what he was doing, or it took a few times for this to, you know what, this is what's happening?
Well, we knew early on because part of the transition plan with him was therapy. Because he was doing play therapy in the beginning.
Got it.
You know, which you're like, what are you doing in play therapy? They're playing, but the therapist is so good that during this playing,
he or she is actually asking,
right, and
pulling
getting the
things out.
information out. And
Yeah.
I'm like, that is amazing because I really didn't think you were doing anything.
So was that something that the agency set up, or did you guys?
It was set up before we even did.
Got it.
Now we when we moved here, we had to set it up here where he goes now down in Morrow. So which is and she's good, you know, and so she's like, okay, well this is kind of what we discussed, what we noticed or whatever like that, and I think now he's like on a good trajectory.
Yeah. Right.
Like the agency will become your family.
Yeah.
Our experience, they have not left us alone. Like if we had to call Los Angeles, we have to call a couple of times about different things. They're going to answer the phone.
Right.
Like you become family with them.
Yeah.
Everybody knows who Marcelino is. Everybody knows
Right.
who we are. It is a great support.
Right.
You know.
How did you? So we're not going to go much into the child that you're about to bring in. You said he's a teenager. Have you already communicated, or is he aware that there's a same-sex couple that he's
Yeah,
going
absolutely.
to? Okay, so do they ask him, are you okay with that? How does
Well,
that work?
you know, the funny thing was when so Georgia does some things a little different here.
Okay.
So so I'll just do a little comparison really quick. In California, once you get certified, the social worker was calling us and saying, "Oh, we have this child, we have this child, we have this child."
So they're trying to see if you want other children.
Right, and we were like, yeah. So, you know, and then we said yes to Marcel. Here, they're like, they do things a little different, and they're like, okay, so we're hosting an event, and it's so, to me, it's sad and heartbreaking. And
Because people are kind of basically coming and
You're
choosing.
shopping.
Shopping, yeah.
But the good thing is that at 99% of the events, the kids are not there.
Oh, that's good.
You know, it's pictures and the stories and the agencies.
Got
But there was one event that they invited us to where it's like the kids are at like a go-kart and I'm like, so all these strange adults are just standing there like watching kids play.
Right.
I said it looks a little pedophile-ish to me.
Right.
You know.
So that's how they do it here.
Yeah. Which
Those 2 ways.
Yeah.
now when you go to the event where it's just the pictures and a little bio about the kids, that's where we pick the one that we are going to be placed with. And the thing about it was, I mean, there's hundreds of photos of kids all around the, you know, different agencies. And we went around the room and I stopped at this one and I said, let me see this picture. And I read it and I said, Anthony, what do you think about this? And he was like, oh, he's a teenager. He's a little old.
I don't think, my exact words was, I don't think anything because he's a teenager.
And-
Because we were still looking for, we actually wanted a little girl,
Okay.
2 to 5. And I know he didn't fit that description, so what do you think? I was like, I don't think anything.
Right.
And then I actually looked at the picture, and it's so funny, and we're leaving so much out. The way we received Marcelino, I was in the hospital.
Oh, yeah.
Jason had received a picture of him and had some backstory. I was about to have surgery on my knee, and the picture came through my phone. And before I knew anything, and we'd already turned down some children.
Right.
The picture came through my phone, and it was this picture looked like it came from like the 60s per the clothes and,
Right.
and the color. And I was like, ooh, like, and I looked at the shoe. I just looked at everything about the picture.
Right.
I
The
was
stylish,
like,
the
I was
stylist
like-
in you.
I was like, go get my child.
Really?
That was the
We got the
exact
email
words.
at the exact same time, and I'm looking at the picture walking through the ER,
yeah.
and they have
'Cause you're going to see him.
Going to see him because he had fell and sliced open his leg, and I walked into his thing, and I turned the phone, and he turned the phone at me at the same time.
Really?
He said, "Go get my child."
Do you realize there were certain moments in your relationship, listen to your story, where there were certain things that lined up?
Always.
So like
we talk about that all the time.
Right. So like the church,
Yeah.
and then meeting for the first time in front of your house after you had talked on the chat line.
Yeah.
Then what was the third thing? It was something else in between there. But then this, how you both walked in and you turned the phones at the same time.
Yeah, and it was the same way when we went to see about our teenager. And, you know, after I made that comment, I did look at the picture. And when I looked at the picture, it reminded me like he could have already have been in our family, especially Jason's family. And I was like, wow, and of course they try to sell you. I mean, these booths are elaborate. So every agency had their own booth, and they have little different tricks and things to get you to come to their booth. And so she came right over and started talking to us. Oh, he's a great kid, And you're like, okay, yeah. Everybody's not that great,
Right.
And you read the little, story on them. And Jason was like, okay, thank you. We folded it up. And
we walked away because there's so many booths that you have to go.
Right.
And I came back then and I said, I have a question about them. And I asked the question and she answered. I said, okay, thank you. And I came back and I said, well, I have another question. And literally every time I walk away, questions were coming about this child. And so the supervisor said, where are you getting these questions from? I said, they're coming to my mind. She said, some of these questions we have never even thought about.
Wow. Right.
So I said, we're interested. Our social worker was there, and I said, we're interested in him. And she said, okay. And I gave her 3. I said, but he's the top.
Right.
That I want.
So what happens if there's another family vying for the same child? How do they?
The agency that hosts the child has to weigh out where they think it would be the best fit.
Got it.
And now the funny thing was. Now, this has been going on.
So it's not April. A thing of, oh, well, we came first. It's more of, well, no, it's a better fit because of the dynamics in this family. And got it. Now, the funny thing was, this all took place in April when we went to the meeting, the shopping event or whatever. And in May, his social worker was contacting us. And I asked her, have you guys spoken to him and asked him if he's okay with having 2 dads? And she was like, oh, I never thought about that. I said, he's a teenager. Yeah. It's not like a baby. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, they already have their own mind, their own perceptions. They've already been shaped. Right. I said, you need to make sure that he's okay with it. Right. And is he black? He's black. Okay. And, yeah, because we only wanted a black child. Because there's so many, and I hate to say it, but there's or biracial. Right. But there's so many of us in the system. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. Because everybody wants the little blonde-haired girl. And I was like, no. Right. And I remember when we went to one particular booth, and the lady kept saying, she said, I have this family, and she was always handling this white children. I said, ma'am, I do not want any white children. Right. And she was so offended. Was she black or white? She was white. Okay. And she was so offended, and I said, it's nothing about that. I said, but there's more black children in the system. I understand that you want to do what you want to do. Right. I said, but I want our children to be black. Yeah, don't lead me. Right. So, so finally she said, okay, well, let me go check with him. And then she emailed us and said, yeah, I spoke to him. He said he's definitely okay with having 2 dads. And then communication stopped, and we hadn't heard anything. How much time? So that was in May, the end of June. Okay. The end of June, so beginning of July, end of June, beginning of July. So I was constantly emailing our social worker, and she said, well, I'm waiting to hear back. So finally she said, I think he was placed with another family. And I was like, oh, I can't believe that. And he didn't get placed, but they were starting visitation. Okay, got it. And he did not feel comfortable with them. Do you know anything about that family? Not at all. Okay. She said, he asked, are the 2 dads still available? Right. And so we were like, okay. I said, I know that's my child. Now I'm curious. Like, I'm wondering if it was a white family he was with. Was it, what was the dynamic? What made I was curious too, but only to a degree. But I really don't care at this point. I'm like, because that's my child. Right.
Because now that we know his story, because, every child in the system has been left behind by normally a mother or a father. But I think for our child that's coming into our life and our son that we have now, and that's why I can't wait for you to help us write this book. Yeah. I think we were drawn to our teenager the same way we were drawn to Marcel, because they have unique stories that they were given up by somebody who you wouldn't think outside of the mother and father. Got it. So where they were, you would thought they were still safe. Right. Even though they were not with their mother and father. Right. And then even them gave them up. Exactly. And so I think that's what we can relate to, because when you adopt, you will get a Bible. They call it a Bible, where you get everything about the child that you possibly could know that they know about the child. And so you could read through it. So in Marcel's instance, we know about the mother and father. We just never met them, but we know a lot about them. And then the same thing moving forward with our teenager. We're learning more about his background, his family, where he comes from, who he aspires to be. So even before you lay eyes on the child physically, you know so much about them that you're dying to meet them.
Right.
You know.
So how did you decide to adopt as opposed to doing like surrogacy outside of like the expense? Because I know it can be really expensive to do artificial insemination, but let's just say money wasn't even a factor. How did you decide to adopt? Is it because you felt like there's so many black kids in the system?
Well,
or?
yes, because that's when we had went to go see the comedian and Alex Mappa. He, they would give so many statistics. Excuse me, I can speak, and the numbers were astounding, and it was like, no, let's do this, and then and. I don't know. I don't know. I think I kind of felt. I'm gonna give me. I kind of felt weird. Like, you want me to just jerk off in the cup and you use that to? I don't know. It just felt.
You didn't. Yeah, the process of actually
It seemed really scientific.
Yeah.
But the funny thing that you say that is that I do have a friend in Pennsylvania who. She used to always, we used to always joke, well, we're going to have a child together, we'll have a child together. And when I went home over the holiday weekend, she was like, I told you, I'm serious, I want us to have a child together.
Right.
And I'm like...
She doesn't have kids now?
No. And she's like, I'm ready, I'm 30 now, I'm ready. And
so she's prime.
And I was like, okay.
Well, girl, we already got it taken care of over here.
Also, what has helped us is we've watched so many things on adoption. You could go on Netflix, but we've watched Roseanne's
Rosie O'Donnell.
Rosie O'Donnell's
her story.
Yeah, her not only her story, her boat trip.
Oh yeah, and she has a documentary on Netflix.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's really good to be informed and read and investigate in Google, but it's also too to be visual and watch other people and listen to other people's story. And I was like, well, they could do it. We can do it too. Yeah. And speaking of the financial part of it, it's not that, and you don't know nobody's financial status, but it wasn't that expensive.
Right.
But you do want to be prepared for when they call you and say, "Oh, we lost your fingerprints, and you got to spend another $125 instantly to go get it done again." You want to be prepared for that, because he would come home and he would be hesitant. I'm like, "You got something to say to me?" "Yeah, we got to go get these fingerprints again and another background check." I said, "They got one from L.A." "No, we in Atlanta now." So I'm like, no, I know how much that costs. But you have to do it all over again, and then you got to wait for it.
So it costs you some money to adopt,
and it costs you if you're slowful, because the thing about it is things are only good for a period of time.
Yeah.
So if I think I said our process took 9 months. But like even here, when we moved here and we started the process here, I don't even know why we were taking so long. It took our time, but the fingerprints expired.
Yeah.
So we had to get it done.
And the background check expired, so we had to do it again.
Yes.
And I was like, what were we? And because we took long.
Exactly.
And I think we had to do 2 recertifications in
for
the
the
period of
classes
time
and stuff that you had to take.
So if you are ready, just go and do everything you need to do, because you don't have to select a child as soon as you finish. You're just now certified, so whenever you're ready you can go and do whatever you want to do.
So how are you going to approach this older child in terms of being in the same gender loving relationship? Is there a certain conversation
that is a conversation that we're going to
have?
Yes. And I think the good thing is that we're in Georgia and we're in Atlanta.
So you think he's probably already been exposed?
I think at some point. I mean, to a degree. So I think and he asked about what happened to the 2 dads.
Right.
So he's at least open to that.
Right.
My conversation with him is more going to be with, well, when you go to school, if this is what is being said or you're being teased about, then this is how you've responded. And the thing is that it's 2017. Probably
there are some people in that
school who have them.
Yeah.
That have 2 parents of the same sex.
Wow.
Definitely 2 women. Cause
So let me ask you. So would he have to change schools? Transfer schools?
He is. Yes.
He's gonna have to transfer schools.
Yes.
Okay. So this is really interesting. Like, this is really, really interesting.
Thinking about it.
Well,
you have to see his face right now, y'all.
I almost swallowed his tongue.
Yeah, I did. I love kids though. Like, I have nieces and nephews, and I would love to have kids, but I don't know what that's gonna look like. Let me find a partner first.
The white carpet.
Correct.
Yeah,
and all this white furniture.
Right.
Yeah. So that's the first thing.
But we're gonna find you a good partner.
Yeah, I need a partner.
I know that's right.
You should see his face again.
I think I have somebody for you.
Oh,
I'll keep it to
Lord.
myself. We'll talk.
We'll talk. All right.
But adoption is I say fun, and I know it's only a 3-letter word, but it could be amazing.
Yeah.
And people get so scared, and we hear stories all the time. Well, they said they got to check our bank account, or you got to at least have $10,000 in the bank. Not necessarily.
And that was part of why I wanted you guys to come.
Not so.
Because I'm sure there are people that are listening.
And
that-
different agencies do different things.
So you can shop around to different
Exactly.
agencies.
And if you talk to an agency and they say something to you that makes you step back, then go talk to another agency.
Absolutely.
I had a couple that was talking to me. They said, "Yeah, well, we went with this one agency, and they said that we needed to have $10,000 in the bank." And I was like, "For what?
Right.
You're not buying a home."
Right. And even if you buy a home,
You had to have that much. And and it's you didn't have to have that. Can you take care of yourself and a child
On your
on
income.
your end? Right. And they're like, definitely.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, well, that's the requirement. So here's this agency that we use, and you should contact them.
Right.
And they did. I need to circle back around to see how everything went, but.
Right. Well, that is awesome. This is incredible. I wish you absolutely nothing but the best.
Thank you.
Whenever you want to come back, you absolutely can come back.
Thank you.
Thank you. I know your listeners are probably waiting us to tie up some loose ends or some stories that we talked about that we didn't tie up. But
No.
next time.
Right, next time. But no, you gave them enough of what they needed to hear about adoption. This is about adoption. Maybe the next time we'll have a conversation about your love and your relationship and how to balance that and navigate the
It's a navigation.
Absolutely. But anyway, I thank you for tuning in, guys. This is So Much to Say. We're available on Spotify, SoundCloud, iTunes, Google Play, YouTube, wherever you can listen to a podcast. Please share this podcast and the other podcasts with your friends, family, and network. My social media is Craig the Writer Stewart. That's on Facebook. That's on Instagram. My website is craigthewriterstewart.com. Be safe and keep loving yourself.